The side pressure strength of Devon Larratt has undergone a notable surge in recent times. This specific facet of his arm wrestling prowess has witnessed a remarkable enhancement, enabling him to exert greater force laterally. Side pressure is internal rotation, which is a stabilizer muscle in the bench press. The bench press is primarily a chest movement. Having a strong JM press, which is similar to bench press, can help elbow integrity immensely. During side pressure, the humerus needs to be held close to the body, a function which is primarily done by the chest. Internal rotation is going to be the point of failure for most people and thus should be the main focus. But the chest still plays a very important role in keeping everything together. It also serves to be reminded that Travis Bajan injured his back arm wrestling as a demonstration of just how much force the back can come under in the sport. Devon has been arm wrestling since he was a teenager. He has more table time than any human being on earth. Those hours on the table are what develop and condition his side pressure. He has a lot of endurance, but his peak force is very mediocre. He sometimes loses side center and has to rely on his massive pronation and endurance to take back the match. Side pressure is necessary for finishing your opponents. Important so you get your opponent out of position and prevent other opponents from getting you out of position. Devon Larratt gets his side pressure from table time. Devon describes it as supination. In reality, it's just side pressure. If you just supinate, your forearm will keep rotating by itself in the same place. You absolutely need side pressure to bring it to your side of the table. You also have to look at it from the perspective of leverage. Devon has a very long forearm, so side pressure puts a lot of undesirable torque on his elbow. For someone like Todd Hutchings, whose levers are shorter, the danger zone for applying side pressure is more narrow. Nobody does pure side pressure. Not even sit-down arm wrestlers. Side pressure always goes with either supination or pronation. Here's what Devon says. Supination is what you really train. Do not take weight from the side and force it to the side. What you're trying to do is supinate. You try to bring the match this way, supination. This gets you shoulder commitment. You'd much rather get behind your arm to press. He said, supinate is a different type of side pressure. That's much safer and you can do a lot longer. Especially good to counter flop press. But in order to get behind your arm, you'd need side pressure. If you just supinate, your forearm will just end up rotating mid-air. Devon is just conflating different concepts. Devon describes supination as keeping your arms close to the body, which is internal rotation side pressure. You can supinate your hand without any elbow traveling? It's both true. Watch when he trains supination. The angle of his body makes it such that he's actually training side pressure slightly. But the main focus is indeed on the supination of the wrist. His side pressure is solid. All those surges he did against Dennis were predominantly side pressure based. The closer you are to the pin pad, the harder it is to finish. Especially against someone like Saplenkov. Even Prime Chaffee couldn't cover those remaining inches. No shame in using other tools. Saying that in For the Round Devon did pin Dennis with side pressure alone, but refs didn't notice and fouled Devon. Devon tried to force a hook with some side pressure, and Dennis nearly buckled Devon's wrist if Devon didn't give up on the hook side pressure to try to regain some center. You can see when the camera switches that Dennis is actually about to win center. Devon knew right there that he couldn't make this an endurance game in the strength sense and had to throw his frame into it and be more dynamic than Dennis. Those surges by Devon to tire out and force transient hypertrophy onto Dennis's arm were one of the most astoundingly brilliant uses of table IQ I've ever witnessed. In the third round, Devon flash pinned Hermes twice. Hermes' back pressure couldn't save him there. It seems that Devon pressing through Hermes once was enough for his back pressure to get pumped and gassed. There was pre-surgery Devon. He would have developed probably the strongest hook in the world. It's sad that he never took rehab properly and his elbow got completely fucked, to a point where he has turned into an extreme outside puller. He regained that ability after he introduced stem cells to his elbow. Devon has a habit of ignoring pain and keeps pushing it, which only exacerbates everything. Avoid extremely strenuous activities like hard pulling for days in a row. Devon is especially guilty of this. He is notorious for pulling up to thousands of people consecutively. And side pressure is absolutely a valuable strength to have and can be safely trained with weights. The Europeans have nailed arm wrestling down to a science, and just look at their training methods. Side pressure is a staple exercise for them. A lot of Europeans have been hook pulling hard for decades and their arms are still healthy and functional. Zoloev has been training side pressure for 20 plus years. He is one of the middleweight goats and has had no major elbow issues. Look at the Kazakhs lifting massive weights with side pressure and see if any of them has a blown elbow like Devon does. Main focus right now is on Devon's pronation, but his back pressure carries him just as much, and I begin to be impressed with it, even more than Hermes lately. Devon simulates his pronation lift against his opponents. Side pressure seems to be minimal. It's all pronation and back pressure. Against Dave, Hermes was consistently brought inches away from the pad in every round. Dave even had a pin, but didn't count because of a foul. In comparison, Devon stopped Dave not far off center in the first round. In subsequent rounds, Dave couldn't achieve even that. There is, of course, their match with Levon, where Hermes' back pressure did wonders, while Devon tore his bicep. The current Devon is day and night compared to the Devon that faced Levon. My impression is that, on the table, Hermes' back pressure doesn't seem to be stronger than Devon's side in the first round. And in later rounds, Devon's back pressure is much stronger due to endurance factor. One of the most noticeable lifts that Devon Larratt does is the multi-spinner with side pressure. I've talked about this lift several times before. The angle the force is coming from isolates side pressure perfectly. This exercise gave him the strength to hold professional arm wrestlers in the center. He used to give away center but compensate with pronation, as his arm goes all the way down a few inches above the pin pad. Of course, pronation is a limiting factor here, and the 3 inches multi-spinner makes it even more difficult. He can lift more weight if he engages wrist flexion instead. Juji Handle. This exercise is somewhat similar to the previous one, despite the shoulder being a little bit engaged. 213 pounds is something serious in this form. This footage is from 3 years ago. He is definitely still doing it, but he's not showing off all of his training. The old hook training. Devon is interesting, actually. He invents specific exercises for arm wrestling and then claimed the world record in what he invents. Pronation and rise single lifts are prime examples. Devon used to be a defensive hooker, and formula was the opponent hits, takes him to their side, and only then does Devon start coiling and gaining more and more cup, more and more position, and slowly compromising his opponent's pronation bit by bit until he can pin or the opponent simply concedes. What I want to convey is that Devon already has that side pressure for the hook. After his surgery, he was not able to utilize it until he discovered stem cells. The stem cells discovery was a game changer for Mr. No Limits. Cartilage can grow back, but much faster with stem cell therapy. The guy is literally rebuilding his muscles and connective tissues. Devon injects them everywhere. He's on a constant IV drip. His arm strength is also definitely in the top 3 of all time, in my opinion. The way he handled Hermes and flopped him to the par, and then out of the straps too, looked pretty good, and then the final flash pin also. All this isn't possible with just hand strength. Then, a few months ago, he went hook on hook with Dennis, who is said to have a super strong arm, and Devon beat him, and even flash pinned him in a hook. We underestimate his arm too much. In my opinion, he definitely has a stronger arm than Hermes and Gainati, that's for sure. Maybe Prime Saplenkov and Levon beat him in the arm field? Devon preaches efficiency. Force your opponent to expend more energy attacking than it requires for you to defend. It's why he is able to outlast his opponents, even ones that are 20 years his junior. Once he has complete control of a fatigued opponent, he can use whatever technique he wants without sustaining as much wear and tear on his arm.